So we know John was at McCarthy's with his buddies when Karen showed up. And they had a lot of drinks at McCarthy's. And then they went over to the waterfall, and in the waterfall, the Alberts and McCabe families were celebrating a birthday. And also in that bar was Brian Higgins. So you have a big group of people at the waterfall. And they're just talking, and we know that Karen was ghosting Higgins. She wouldn't talk to him, right? And then there's talk about going to an after party at Brian Albert's house. And Karen and John said they'll go, and Higgins like, okay, I'll go too, because I want to keep an eye on Karen, because she was flirting with him months prior. And as they're walking out the bar, I think Higgins yelled out to John, "Hey John, come to Brian's house. I got something I want to tell you." And John's going, whatever. And Karen hears this, right? So he leaves the waterfall with a cocktail and a straw. And we see them go into Karen's car. And John's going, wow, what does Higgins want to tell me? I can't wait to get there and hear what Higgins has to say. And Karen's like, I don't want Higgins talking to him. Maybe we shouldn't go. And they're probably, talking in the car. Like, I don't want to go. I don't want to go. And John's like, yeah, let's go. Let's hear what Higgins has to say. So he gets on his phone and he starts doing the waves in the car. And we'll pick up the video from the car. In Karen's interview, she said the cocktail glass was in her cup holder. And that's kind of suspicious right there, that she remembered on a drunken night that John put the cocktail in the cup holder. So that's, and we'll get to later why she remembers that. But anyway, John's in the car doing all the voicemails, the ways. He's calling, trying to figure out where 34 Fairview is, and there's probably an argument in the car, and the argument in the car is most likely either what Higgins was saying at the bar, like, "Hey, John, I want to tell you something," or it was Jen McCabe saying, "Brian lives over by Bella," and John O'Keefe used to date Bella, and Karen knew that. So there was most likely an argument in the car, and they're arguing on their way over to 34 Fairview. Karen misses the turn, and she's pissed off, so that's why she did the angry K-turn up the street. And she had to turn around, do a K-turn, and that's the first trigger in the metadata. And they finally get to 34 Fairview, and John has been using his phone. I have a flip phone. Anyway, John's been using his phone for the ways, and he's using his right hand to open the door. So his hands are busy, and he doesn't pick up that cocktail glass. So he gets out of the car, he's holding his phone, and he gets out of the car, and he thinks, oh shit, my drink. So he goes to get his drink. Karen picks it up and throws it at John as he's standing here in the street, and it falls and breaks in the middle of the street. Okay, John gets out of the car, and Karen leaves. Now, if he was holding his drink and his phone, he just starts walking to the front door. He doesn't need to stand in the street for 10 seconds. And we know the triggers. She's gone, and then she backs up. So she's gone for at least 10 seconds. And John is still in the street. Here he is, he's holding his drink and his phone, and according to the Commonwealth, she hit him and like this, and it broke the glass. But no. John had no time to be standing in the street. He's walking to the front door with his drink. Karen threw the glass at him, or he dropped it. Something happened where that cocktail glass ended up in the street, like this, with a straw. Karen leaves. John's sitting there looking at a broken glass. Now he could just go in the house still, but he doesn't want to leave broken glass in front of Brian's house. So he's like, what does he do? He has to clean up Karen's mess again, right? So he takes his phone, puts it in his back left pocket. We think he's left-handed because he had a Fitbit on his right wrist. So John's left-handed. Puts the phone in his back pocket, bending down to pick up a broken glass, right? Just like you would in your kitchen. You put the broken base, there's no brim. You put the broken base in your palm, and you start picking up pieces. Just like Karen decides she wants the last word. So she puts it in reverse, and she wants to get him before he gets to the front door to say, fuck you, John, right? But John is bending in the street, picking up pieces. He's wearing a hat. I can't even see my Tahoe over the brim of this hat. So he can't see it coming, and he finally sees like a reflection coming, and he starts to get up, right? Now John had a cracked eyebrow and a bruise on the back of his right hand. And we know about the back of the skull was cracked, and he had scratches on the arm. So those are the 4 injuries that John had. But here we go. This is what I think happened. He sees something coming. He's got the glass in his hand like this, and he finally sees something coming, and he starts to get up. And the tail lens clipped his eyebrow. Like, bang! Hat goes flying off. Sorry, Trump. Eyebrow hits and shatters the tail lens. The right hand hits the car, so you get the bruise on the right hand. Bam! This hand holding the cocktail glass without a brim comes up, and it hits the tailgate right here. We know there's scratches right here on the tailgate, and the pieces fall to the step bumper, right? And then, bam! John slips out. There's an icy floor, right? So he just slips out, bang, cracks the back of his skull. Now he's a cop, so he's trained to hold his gun. He's left-handed. He's trained to hold, so he's holding on to this. He's got the death grip on this cup. And he's also trained as a cop to be conscious about his awareness, about his surroundings. So he doesn't lose consciousness. So he falls back, cracks his skull. Karen is passing him up, right? And she's looking out her front window, and she sees John either on his back, crawling to the front yard. And we see all those grass stains on the back of his jeans. So he's like pushing up the front to the front yard, and Karen sees that. She goes, okay, I clipped him, and he's gonna get to the house. He doesn't look mortally wounded. So she just leaves. Meanwhile, John's on the lawn, and he's like, and then the brain starts swelling. And it's like, oh, he can't get to the house. And he's like, oh, can I get to my phone? So he drops the glass right next to his body, and maybe he's reaching for that phone, and he's like, oh, and then maybe the phone comes out, and it falls like on his lower back. He can't get it out, and just brain swell. Just all of a sudden, he dies. He dies. And Karen is on her way home, and then she's on the phone calling John. She wants to make sure he's alive. And when he doesn't answer that first call, she thinks he's ignoring her phone calls. Like earlier in the day, during the day, he was not answering her text messages or her phone calls, and she thinks he's doing the same thing. She's just pissed off. So when she got to One Meadow, she parked in the street making phone calls. She didn't go in the garage. She's making calls, like, I want to make sure he's alive, and if he is, I want him to come back. I want to go back and get him. So she doesn't want to put the car in the garage yet, until she is giving up all hope of going back to 34 to pick up John, right? So she also thinks John is inside the house, right? She thinks John's in the house. And Higgins is now spilling the beans, like, oh, she's a C word. She's been texting me. So Karen is calling John later when she's at One Meadow. You pervert, you pedophile, I hate you, yada, 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 yada. And she's basically trying to get the last word because she thinks if Higgins tells John what he knows, it's over. So Karen is getting her last words in, and she's also trying to figure out if he's alive. 4 o'clock rolls around, she calls Jen McCabe, and I got the next video that's lined up for that time. So when Karen got to One Meadow, she didn't pull in the garage right away. She was sitting in the street making phone calls. And finally, when she figures she's not going to go back and get John, she puts the car in the garage. She gets out of the car and she walks around to the back of the car. And you could probably see on the Ring video her standing like I am right now looking at my tail light. Because the Lexus is pretty long. The tail is probably right near the garage door. So she's standing within the Ring video range, and she's standing there going, oh my God, there's a piece missing. Now here's the important part. Karen sees one piece missing. She doesn't know if it's in 40 pieces or one piece. And let's say this lens is representative of the one missing piece. Karen doesn't know if it's one piece or 40 pieces, so she's thinking there might be a piece in the front yard next to John's body. So keep that in mind when she gets to 34 Fairview. Now, when she backed out of the garage, she rubbed a little light beam sensor. It looks like this. It's a little light beam sensor, and you can see she rubbed the house. And all of a sudden, her Lexus wiggled, and a snow flurry. You see on the Ring camera, it's very clear. Then all of a sudden, boom, here comes a snow flurry. She rubbed the side of the garage. And that broke this light beam sensor. And that's what caused her garage door not to close. And then she backed out, and she tapped John's Traverse, and then she left One Meadow around 5:07. And she's supposed to be going to Cary, but I believe she makes a detour. Okay, we know about 4 o'clock, Karen saw that John wasn't home. And she had made phone calls earlier trying to get proof of life, that he was still alive. So at 4 o'clock, she decides to call Jen McCabe. And she just can't tell Jen that she left John at Brian's house in case he is dead in the front yard, like this. So she lies to Jen McCabe and says, I left him at the waterfall. And she's hoping Jen goes, no, you hit him at Brian's, and he's resting on Brian's couch. And that's what Karen really wants to hear, is that John is okay. And then she can go to bed and sleep. But Jen goes, no, we saw you parked out front at Brian's. And then she mentions, like, maybe he's at Bella's house down the street, stuff like that. And then they hang up, and Karen's like, oh shit, he's not there. He's not resting on a couch. So she calls Carrie Roberts and says stuff like, John got hit by a plow. And she doesn't mention to Carrie that her taillight's broken. So Carrie goes, come to me, and we will search for John. So Karen leaves her house at 5:07, and there's a video, the previous video I just made, she rubbed the garage, broke the light sensor. Anyway, instead of going to Carrie, she goes back to the crime scene, because at 5:14, you see a black SUV at the intersection of Washington and Denham. That's where the mosque is. So she goes back to 34 Fairview. Now, she didn't have GPS on in her car or her phone, so you can't pinpoint her there. But when she got to 34 Fairview, it was around 5:20, she sees this, John in the front yard. And she's thinking, oh, okay, he's dead. And she's like, shit. She's got Ring video and voicemails that she needs to delete. And she also might find the one piece of tail lens off the back of her car. She doesn't know if it's many pieces. It could be one piece, right? So And then she knows she's got to go see Carrie, and she can't be digging in the snow, getting her sleeves all wet. So she's thinking, she goes, I gotta get these things. And she grabs a tool out of her car. And during the winter, every car has a window ice scraper. This is a barbecue cleaner, but it's the same kind of concept. You gotta scratch your ice off your windshield, right? Now Karen goes, I need the phone. So what does she do? She says, I'm going to call it. At 5:21, she leaves a voicemail on John's phone. John, nobody knows where you're at. Where are you? You can hear some wind in the background, right? And she can't hear the phone. She can't hear it ringing. So she goes, okay, maybe I can see the light. So she dials another one. And this time it's like a butt dial. You just hear wind, like shh. And she leaves the phone in her car. And then she gets out there and she's looking for light. And so she uses the tool and she's digging, looking for the phone and the tail light. And she's digging around his body and she's digging. She gets to the right arm and she's digging. And she's using this tool and it's making scratches up and down that right arm. She's sitting there, where's the phone? Where's the light? She's looking for the light. So she's like, okay. And then she's like, she can't find it. Now she's looking and she goes, all these feet print in the snow. And she's like, when somebody finds John, they're going to see the feet print. So she's thinking, I need to be the one to find John, right? And then she goes, well, I just can't call 911 now because I'm here. So she goes, okay, I'm going to go to Carrie. I'm going to go to Carrie so I can bring Carrie back, find John. Perfect. But at 4 o'clock in the morning, she called and woke Jen up. Jen's awake. And Jen's going, we saw John and Karen in front of Brian's house. I'm going to drive over right now and check. And Karen, she can't allow that because the feet print. So instead of going to Carrie first, she goes to Jen first. So Karen moves to her car, and then she looks at her phone in her car, and it's hung up. And it's like, shit, the voicemail was not going because there wasn't enough noise. There wasn't enough noise on the voicemail. So when she was digging, there was no light. There was no light to look for the phone. So that was her whole point, is finding the phone. So she drives to Jen's house, and then they call Carrie, and Carrie goes to Jen's house. So all three are at Jen's house. Carrie is smart. She said, no, we can't drive the Lexus, so we're gonna, and then we're also gonna go back to John's first. She's logical. We're gonna go to John's first and see if John's home first. Karen, she wants to get to 34 Fairview, but no. Carrie's smart. So they drive 2 cars to John's at One Meadows and to look for John. And Jen and Carrie, they know the rules. They got to take their shoes off before they go in his house. Karen, no. Karen runs into the house and she's searching really fast because she's in a hurry to get back to 34 Fairview. And they don't find John, and then they leave in Carrie's Ford Explorer. And they're going to 34 Fairview. And what does Karen do in the back of the Ford? She gets her phone going. She calls John, voicemail again, knowing that the phone's going to be lit up. And she needs to make a lot of noise, and then she's probably screaming in the back of the Ford to keep it going. Now this last voicemail, was not allowed in the criminal trial, probably because of hearsay laws. They don't know who started the phone call because you got Carrie, Jen, and Karen all in the car. So the defense probably argued, oh, Jen McCabe pressed read dial on Karen's phone, so we can't prove Karen dialed that last voicemail. That's why it wasn't in the criminal trial. Anyway, Karen started a voicemail in the back of the Ford, and she's near 34 Fairview. It's dark, it's snowy, and she goes, let me out. She's screaming to keep that voicemail going. And they finally let her out of the car. She rushes to John to cover all the snow prints, because if Carrie and Jen get out of the car a little quicker, they go, wait. We see feet print going to John. Someone was here before us. So Karen had to get out of the car really fast, and then she put the phone by the back left tire, and she had to keep screaming, oh. She's screaming to keep that voicemail going, to keep the phone lit. And then she gets on top of John, and she's lifting his shirt, and she's putting her chest on him, and warm him up, warm him up. She's not trying to warm him up. She's digging for the phone. She's looking for the light. She's like, where's the phone? Where's the phone? I need the phone. I need the phone. Officer Sheriff, and then Jen McCabe called 911, and on that voicemail you hear Jen McCabe's 911 call, right? Officer Sheriff shows up. On his dash cam, you hear a noise on Officer Sheriff's dash cam. That matched up with the voicemail, okay? So that voicemail cut Jen's 911 call and all the pandemonium on Officer Sheriff's dash cam. And then, on Officer Sheriff's dash cam, you see Karen bending down, picking up her phone, and turning off the voicemail. So that is how Karen knew before the Ford Explorer got there that John was already dead, because she was there earlier. She made the marks on his arm with the window ice scraper, right? And there was no blood on the sleeves. And everyone's saying Dr. Cordy Bellows said the scratches were done before he died. Well, John is on ice. He's like that medium rare steak in your steakhouse. That cow was killed, then put on ice. John's on ice before he died. So the arms could be done after John was dead at 5:21 a.m. That's when I contend the arm marks were made. Now, the arm also, Dr. Rentschler disproved the arm hitting the Lexus. There's not enough time in 10 milliseconds for 30 different scratches up and down that arm. Dr. Rentschler proved, without a shadow of doubt, that the Lexus did not cause John's arms. But Karen did with the scratching. So my famous line is, just like OJ, the glove didn't fit, the arm didn't fit the Lexus. And that's why the jury acquitted Karen, because the arm did not fit the Lexus. Can you believe that? Karen created her own reasonable doubt.